in 2016, most of the world's governments signed up to the Paris Agreement, which committed the world to be on a net zero pathway by the second half of this century. So how are we actually doing on net zero? Well, we've seen a huge amount of increase in commitments over the last year, in fact, a doubling of commitments by governments and companies on net zero. We've got now more than 65% of CO2 emissions bound by some kind of net zero commitment, usually by 2050. And we've got over 70% of the world's GDP signed up, and over 1,500 companies and over 100 financial institutions have also signed up to net zero commitments. So it's certainly the buzzword of the moment right now. At S&P Global, we monitor these commitments and trajectories, and we would actually say that there is much more progress that needs to be made. We're falling about 72% short of the kind of commitments we need to see to achieve net zero. And in fact, rather than being on a 1.5 degree warming trajectory, we are tracking more like on a more than 3 degree warming trajectory for most portfolios and most bank loan books. So we certainly need more progress. The question is net zero the hugest investment opportunity, the largest investment opportunity of our lifetimes, or something that presents huge risk? Join us at S&P Global in monitoring the progress of governments and companies towards net zero transition.
Climate often grabs the headlines when it comes to tackling sustainability issues. In fact, the E in ESG has become synonymous with attempts to tackle climate change. However, while this is certainly one of the most significant risks facing our planet today, issues like biodiversity loss and water stress should be considered as part of the same challenge. Scientific studies have shown that over half of the world's total GDP is moderately or highly dependent on nature. However, the cost to the world economy from the loss of nature could be as high as $10 trillion by 2050. Furthermore, we could be facing a global freshwater deficit of 56% by as soon as 2030. Understandably so, companies and their investors are now starting to wake up to the impact of biodiversity and water risk. The question is, how can we increase visibility on these risks, and how can this inform action? Part of the challenge is that biodiversity loss and water stress are very localized issues. At the same time, there are no universal metrics for these issues. They are too complex to be aggregated into a single metric. The good news is that there are emerging data sets and tools out there that can help us shed a light on local issues. The opportunity, however, is to combine these types of data sets with geo-specific information so that we can map out business activities and translate them into meaningful metrics for capital markets. Bringing this type of intelligence together can help companies and investors focus on the metrics that matter, helping them to manage risks and take action to protect our natural environment and sustain growth.
The Sustainable Development Goals are part of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and form a plan of action for people, planet, and prosperity. 193 countries adopted the 2030 Agenda, including the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Our research at S&P Global finds that mandatory sustainability reporting requirements increased to 600 globally by the end of 2020, significantly higher than when the SDGs were adopted. To support progress on the SDGs, my colleagues help companies leverage data to understand their impact, set targets, and measure progress towards increasing their positive impact. Leveraging S&P Global's tools, businesses are learning how to identify opportunities that also serve the needs of the SDGs.